Krishna, 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Hare
Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, oh Rama Rama, Hare Hare Hare
Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo bolo. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining this morning. We welcome you all to our morning Srimad Bhagavatam classes. This morning, we will be hearing and discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 14, and verse number 32 and 33. And the title of the chapter is The Disappearance of Lord Krishna. This morning's class will be given by Her Grace Vrindavaneshwari Radhika Mataji from ISKCON, Philadelphia. Thank you, Mataji, for your association. And whenever you're ready, we can start the class. Hare Krishna.
You. Hare Krishna. Good morning, everyone. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Jabihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Asatarya Sata His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Asatari Sata His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sikaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadara Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Gita Govardhan Ki Jai. Mayapradam Ki Jai. Vrindavadam Ki Jai. Jamuna Devi Ki Jai. Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. ISKCON Harrisburg Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Haribol. All glories, ye assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories, ye assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories, ye assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, Hare Hare Bol. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminati Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravana Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshatarane. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we'll read from text from Canto 1, Chapter 14, text 32 and 33. So I'll read them both 3 times, and then you can also repeat. Tataiva nuchara shure, shruta deva devaya vadayam. Shunanda Nanda Shtir Shanya Yachanye Satsvartar Shaba Api Svasti Aste Tasarva Rama Krishna Bujaraya Api Smiranti Kushalam Asmakambada Surhrida Tateva Natura Shure Shruta Devo Deviyadaya Sunandananda Shri Sanya Yachanye Satvatar Shaba Api Svasti Asta Sarve Rama Krishna Bujar Shraya Api Smaranti Kushalam Ashma Kambuddha Sahrida Tateva Nuchara Shure Shruta Devo Devadvadaya Sunandananda Shirshainya Yachenya Satvatar Shaba Api Swasti Aste Sarva Rama Krishna Bujashraya Api Smaranti Kushalam Ashmakambada Sudrita. Anyone else like to go?
Hare Krishna. Tatheva nucharaha shaurye Shrutadevo Uddhavadaya Sunandananda Shirnayaye Chanya Satvatrashvashabha Api swasti asate sarve Rama Krishna Bhujashrayaha Api smaranti kushalam asmakam badhuso hradaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna. Tathaivanuchara shauri Shrutadevo Udvadayaha Sunandananda Shirshanaye Chanye Satvatar Api Swastyasate Sarve Ramakrishna Bhujashraya Api Smaranti Kulakshanam Asmakam Baddha Suhurdaha.
Good. Anyone else? This is a long one today. Okay, we'll go through word for word translation. Tata Eva, similarly, Anuchara, constant companions, Shareha, of Lord Krishna, such as Shrutadeva, Uddhava Adaya, Uddhava and others, Sunanda, Nanda, Shirshainya, other leaders, yea, all of them, Cha, and Anya, others, Satvata, liberated souls, Rishbha, the best men, Api, if, Svasti, doing well, Ashate, are, Sarve, all of them, Rama, Balaram, Krishna, Lord Krishna, Bhuja Ashraya, under the protection of, Api, if also, Smaranti, do remember, Kushalam, welfare, Ashmakam, about ourselves, Vada Shurida, bound by eternal friendship. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Also, Shrutadev, Uddhava, and others, Nanda, Sunanda, and other leaders of liberated souls who are constant companions of the Lord are protected by Lord Balaram and Krishna. Are they all doing well in their respective functions? Do they, who are all liberated, bound, and eternally bound in friendship with us, remember our welfare? Purport. The constant companions of Lord Krishna, such as Uddhava, are all liberated souls, and they descended along with Lord Krishna to this material world to fulfill the mission of the Lord. The Pandavas are also liberated souls who descended along with Lord Krishna to serve him in his transcendental pastimes on this earth. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 4:8, the Lord and his eternal associates, who are also liberated souls like the Lord, come down on this earth at certain intervals. The Lord remembers them all, but his associates, although liberated souls, forget due to their being Tashtata Shakti, or marginal potency of the Lord. That is the difference between the Vishnu Tattva and the Jiva Tattva. The Jiva Tattva are infinitesimal potential particles of the Lord, and therefore they require the protection of the Lord at all times. And to the eternal servitors of the Lord is pleased to give all protection at all times. The liberated souls never therefore think themselves as free as the Lord or as powerful as the Lord, but they always seek the protection of the Lord in all circumstances, both in the material world and in the spiritual world. This dependence of the liberated soul is constitutional, for liberated souls are like sparks of fire that are able to exhibit the glow of fire along with the fire and not independently. Independently, the glow of the sparks is extinguished, although the quality of fire or the glowing is there. Thus, those who give up the protection of the Lord and become so-called lords themselves out of spiritual ignorance come back again to this material world, even after prolonged tapasya of the severest type. That is the verdict of all Vedic literature. Om Jnana Timaranjasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmalatam Yena Tashme Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svadvatantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadara Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Nama Om Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Charaswama Niti Namane Snigta Jeta Supranata Vadmanam Jarasa Plutam Prabhupada Gata Prananam Bhakti Charapadam. So I'll read the translation again. Also, Shrutadev, Uddhava, and others, Nanda, Sunanda, and other leaders of liberated souls who are constant companions of the Lord are protected by Lord Balaram and Krishna. Are they doing well in their respective functions? Do they, who are all eternally bound in friendship with us, remember our welfare? So here we know that King Yudhisthira is asking about his friends, his family. He's asking about all of those that went, that are not there with them. Arjuna just came back from Dwarka and he's bereft. And so King Yudhisthira is asking Arjuna, how are my friends? How's the family? How are Krishna and Balaram? How is everyone doing? And in this way, he's seeing that Arjuna's mood is very low. And he's recognizing that something very serious is happening or has happened. So here in the purport, Prabhupada helps us understand that these great souls that King Yudhisthira is asking about are souls that have come here as companions of the Lord. And as these companions of the Lord, they are part of the Lord's associates to carry out the responsibilities, carry out the activities of this life, to carry out the activities of this pastime with Krishna. And we know the Bhagavad Gita 4:8, which Prabhupada referenced, Paritranaya sadunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma sampatha parthnaya daya sambhavani yuge yuge. So to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to reestablish the principles of religion, I myself appear millennium after millennium. And he not only appears, but he appears with his associates. He comes for the benefit of those that are here, the pious. He comes to also destroy the demons, the miscreants. But he's coming here. He doesn't come alone. The Lord comes with all of his friends. He comes with all of those that are also engaged in this spiritual endeavor. And so he is here to, in this particular pastime, he says, he tells us why he's here. He's here to deliver the pious and to take care of the miscreants, but he's also here to reestablish religious principles. And we know that this is coming to the ending of the Yuga cycle, and we're going to be starting Kali Yuga. So we're starting to see the symptoms of Kali Yuga in this chapter. The symptoms of Kali Yuga have been starting to be enumerated, and the lies and the cheating, the quarrels that are happening suddenly. The animals are not satisfied, they're not settled. And so we're starting to see what's happening as Krishna leaves. We're seeing the beginning of Kali Yuga, and this is really this foreboding that Arjuna is feeling. Everyone's feeling this foreboding that Krishna is going to be leaving. Arjuna knows what's happened. He's very distressed. And so this is kind of the backstory. This is how we get to where we are today in Kali Yuga. And the couple of things when I was really thinking about today's verse and thinking about the associates that accompany the Lord, the different type of siddhas come up. There's the Nitya Siddha, which is the Nitya Siddha is really someone that has come to, they've come as an associate of the Lord. They are perfect in their surrender. They are pure associates of the Lord. And so many of the personalities that we're learning about here are really Nitya Siddhas. They are pure souls. They're eternally in love with the Lord. And there's a number of different verses that talk about this Nitya Siddha, and there's the Nitya Siddhas, they never fall down to the region of the material atmosphere. And even though they sometimes come into the material plane to execute the mission of the Lord. So even though they might be coming here, it may seem that they are in a material body, they are in a material mode, but they are actually here on a spiritual mission, on the spiritual mission of the Lord. And in the Bhagavatam, Canto 3, in chapter 3, in verse 26, in the purport, Prabhupada describes this role of these associates. And he says in the purport, amongst the devotees of the Lord, there are several divisions, mainly Nitya Siddhas and Sadhana Siddhas. The Nitya Siddha devotee never falls down to the region of the material atmosphere, even though they sometimes come into the material plane to execute the mission of the Lord. The Sadhana Siddha devotees are chosen from the conditioned souls. Out of the sadhana devotees, there are mixed and pure devotees. The mixed devotees are sometimes enthusiastic about fruitive activities and are habituated to philosophical speculation. The pure devotees are free from all of these mixtures and are completely absorbed in the service of the Lord, regardless of how and where they are situated. Pure devotees of the Lord are not enthusiastic to put aside their service to the Lord in order to go visit holy places of pilgrimage. A great devotee of the Lord in modern times, Sri Narottama Das Thakur, has sung like this: to visit holy places of pilgrimage is another bewilderment of the mind, because devotional service to the Lord at any place is the last word in spiritual perfection. That's interesting, right? So we're very much driven to go visit holy places, but this is a pure devotee. So we're talking about someone that's very elevated. This is the Advaitas, the Nanda Maharaj, the Devakis. This is all of these wonderful the ones that appear as his devotees, but also are appearing as his associates, helping to carry out these pastimes. And so the thing that is important to remember with this is that these people are this type of personality, this type of devotee is actually very rare, and they are coming. Ultimately, they are so surrendered to the Lord, they are so engaged in spiritual service that everything else is a distraction for them, as pointed out in this purport, even going to the holy places, because they know that serving the Lord can occur everywhere because the Lord is with them. They are serving the Lord 100% of the time, no matter what they're doing. And that's quite an elevated position to be. That's very, very elevated. And so there's another verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 3, verse 167. Prabhupada says, kind of talking about the unsuccessful yogi, which we learn about also in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6. The unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets, of the pious living entities is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. Mother Sachi, a Nitya Siddha living entity, is an incarnation of Mother Yashoda. She appeared in the house of Nilambara Chakravarti and was everlastingly engaged in the service of Lord Vishnu. Later, she directly had as her child Lord Vishnu, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and she served him from the day of his appearance. And we're in the kind of the season of Lord Chaitanya right now. And here it says, this is the position of a Nitya Siddha associate. And so this is this constant service. And like I said, we're in the season of Lord Chaitanya and his associates. We had Sri Adwaita appearance last week. This week, we had the appearance of Lord Nityananda. And then we have Gaura Pranim coming up in a couple of weeks. So it's really a beautiful time to remember Lord Chaitanya, remember his associates, because they were here for a very specific purpose. They were here to serve the Lord. They're always engaged in the service of the Lord. And in this Madhya Lila purport, it says, even from childhood, that the service of the Lord is always present in their mind and in their hearts. And so we have this, we have this understanding of that position. So here, there's another example of Maharaj Parikshit, the grandson of the Pandavas, was from his very childhood a great devotee of the Lord. And so here he was also that in that pastime to serve the Lord always. And we know that ultimately he was part of the, hearing the Bhagavatam in his last 7 days of life. And so in this verse that we've read here today, Prabhupada talks about the fact that the Lord remembers all of their pastimes, but his associates, although they're liberated, they do forget due to their because of the marginal potency of the Lord. So they don't possess the complete potency of the Lord. Only Krishna, only Vishnu can have the full potency, because that is God. No one can mimic, no one can imitate the full potency of the Lord, because it's impossible. Only the Lord has all of the potencies, all of the opulences. And even his devotees, even his purest devotees, even his associates do not have all of the qualities of the Lord. It's the marginal potency of the Lord. And so in the Bhagavad Gita, we know, of all these pastimes, I can remember all of them, but you can remember only this one. So Krishna tells us in Bhagavad Gita that this is due to the material coverings, that even though his associates come into this world, his associates come in to be part of that pastime with Krishna, to carry out his mission for this particular time, even still, they still don't remember everything. They don't remember their past lives. They don't remember their full relationship with the Lord. They are just there to serve 100% of the time, serve. And that is the pure devotee. That is, that's kind of the pinnacle of devotional service. And we know from these examples that are given all throughout Bhagavatam, there are so many examples of these devotees in the Bhagavatam, and we can learn from them, but we're not to imitate. It is not meant to be something that we try and imitate, we try and mimic. When we start to imitate, we create a lot of conflict within ourselves, and we're also stepping into a realm that's not understood. If we are imitating, we are not actually in that space of being fully absorbed. We are trying to mimic. Now, we want to take the lessons and take the teachings of these great devotees, take the understanding of their relationship, and try and with the tools that we have to apply some of those things. But we never want to walk around imitating that, because that's a very dangerous thing. Imitation is not the real thing. We know that. The whole fake it till you make it mentality. There's some aspect of that, which is, we want to take the qualities that we aspire to and really try to apply them to ourselves. But then fake it until you make it can be dangerous, especially in spiritual life, that if we are imitating and not having the internal foundation of what we're presenting, then this can become very dangerous. So this is where, as devotees, we stay in that sadhana bhakti space. The sadhana bhakti position keeps us in a space of humility, keeps us in a space of, focusing on the regulative principles, focusing on the processes of bhakti yoga, the nine processes of bhakti yoga, the Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padanam, Sevanam, all of these things. These are what are going to help us. What's going to help us eventually work our way up, But the goal is to continue to cultivate ourselves. But if we continue to say, I want to be a pure devotee, I want to be a pure devotee, that's a good thing to want to aspire to that, but we have to make sure the foundation is in place. And by recognizing that we are yet to be pure devotees, that we are aspiring to be that's a critical component to spiritual life. So what we do is we take on the process, because Prabhupada says here that even prolonged tapasya of the severest type is not going to get us to the Lord if we are not taking surrender of the Lord. And so how do we know if we're surrendering to the Lord? Well, are we still trying to lord over material energies? And Prabhupada says here that if we're trying to lord over the material world, lord over circumstances, we're not going to be able to progress. It says the dependence of the liberated soul is constitutional, for the liberated souls are like sparks of fire that are able to exhibit the glow of fire along with the fire and not independently. So when we try and operate independently of the Lord, the fire will go out. And then we are just operating with the material energies, with our own false ego, imitating. We can imitate a spark. We can pretend to be a spark, but unless we're connected with the fire, the spark is not there. And that's a really important distinction. And it's very clear here when Prabhupada talks about this in the purport, he's saying that these marginal potencies of the Lord, they require the protection of the Lord at all times. They require it. The jiva tattvas are infinitesimal potencies of the Lord, and they require the protection of the Lord at all times. So how does that work? So the jiva tattvas we require it, right? But we are, if we turn ourselves to the Lord at all times, and we seek the protection of the Lord, then we will start to see some progress in our spiritual activities. But as is said in one of the purports, we often will have mixed. There'll be a mixture of activities, and so when there's spiritual activity that's mixed, some of it's for spiritual, and some of it's for fruitive activities. And the mixed devotees are sometimes enthusiastic about fruitive activities and sometimes toward philosophical speculation. And sometimes they're very enthusiastic for enthusiastic for spiritual life. And so this is the sadhana siddha. So the sadhana siddhas are ones there's two different kinds, the mixed and the pure. And that the pure devotees, the sadhana siddhas, we don't know if those sadhana siddha pure devotees are, they're pure devotees. There's no questioning how they got there. They may have always been that way. They might be a nitya siddha. They may have gotten to that pure devotional stage through bhakti, through the process of bhakti. It's not for us to question, right? It's just for us to see, just acknowledge and not to question how someone got there. And it's in the movement, within the bhakti movement, within the Hare Krishna movement, we try to see the highest qualities in an individual, and also see ourselves as always the student of bhakti, see ourselves always as the student that there's opportunities for us to grow and learn. And when we always see ourselves as a student, we are always open, keeping our mind open to learning and to growing in our devotional life. And so, so here we have, Krishna tells us in Bhagavad Gita that going back to the highest, the pure devotees, he says in Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma chame divyam, evam yoveti tatvatha, svatva deham punar janma, natimam eti sojourna. He's saying, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving, take his birth again in the material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So he's telling us here that all you have to, if you understand that who I am, if you understand the nature of my appearance, and this is the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities. Now, this is something that these pure, these associates of the Lord, they understand. They do not, they come back only when the Lord brings them back as his, as his associate in that particular pastime. And the Lord comes back in so many different ways. So we know we're talking about Krishna's pastime right now, but the Lord comes back as Lord Ram, as Lord Chaitanya, as so many other incarnations. And the thing to keep in mind is that each one of these incarnations, he's bringing his devotees with him, but only the Lord remembers. He is the highest, and so we don't want to spend a lot of time trying to dissect it. We just understand it to be as such. We understand that the Lord comes, he comes with his associates. The associates are pure devotees of the Lord, or else they wouldn't be there serving directly with the Lord. That's how they get to that place. And so in our regular sadhana, in our daily activities here in our bhakti, we are working toward understanding these basic principles of bhakti. We are working toward understanding the relationships with the Lord. We're working toward understanding the basic the relationship with Krishna. And so the key here is to just really stay focused. And the thing with this verse that we're understanding is that all of this is leading up to a time when Krishna disappears, right? This chapter is called The Disappearance of Krishna. And what does that signify for us? Well, Krishna is disappearing from this earthly plane, disappearing from this material existence, even though he's not material, he's spiritual. But it's also, when Krishna goes away, there's lamentation. There's the prayers. This is all of his lamentation for Krishna's disappearance. And for us who have never, been in a time with the Lord where we've actually been on the planet at the same time as the Lord, then for us, what this lamentation, this disappearance of the Lord, is really also signifying for us how the material energies can cover us over, and the Lord can disappear from our lives as well. So not only is this Krishna actually leaving the planet and going back to the spiritual world, but for those of us who are working toward rediscovering our relationship with Krishna, we're working toward uncovering, that Paramatma, uncovering our true position as eternal servants of the Lord. This is signifying also for us that when Krishna is not present in our lives, there's suffering. There's tremendous suffering. And it's not to say that when we have a deep relationship with Krishna, that we don't feel pain or we don't feel loss, but the suffering is different. And we can see the examples of that in the Bhagavatam. When Krishna goes away, the intense suffering. When he's there may be difficulties, but it's not the intense suffering of when he's gone. The gopis, when the gopis lament, they're suffering deeply when Krishna goes away. When Krishna's there, there's still troubles, there's still things happening. They're leaving their husbands and going into the woods. So there's difficulties there, but Krishna is there. He's providing that protection. And this is kind of this is the real lesson for our lives too, that when Krishna leaves our heart, Krishna's always in our hearts, but when we detach ourselves from that relationship with Krishna, we increase our suffering. And the suffering that we feel is really just the material energies bearing down on us. The material energies, the modes of material energy, these are the energies really bearing down on us unforgivingly, that we are now in a space where Krishna can't protect us as well because we're not turning to Krishna. We're not turning into that relationship. So if Krishna is trying to protect us, he's trying to give us guidance, and we're ignoring it, and we're just continuing to engage more and more deeply in material activities and thinking that we can be the Lord of our own lives, that we know what's best, we're going to figure it out, then certainly, Krishna's okay, do your thing. And, Mahamaya will take over and then take the reins and pull us into all kinds of difficulties without the protection of the Lord. But when we choose to turn our hearts toward a relationship with the Lord, then we're engaging in that relationship. It's like a child that leaves the house, maybe they get angry and they run away for the day. And, as a parent, you can try and protect the child, you can try and do everything. But when they leave, or they turn their backs and say, I'm an adult, I'm going to do whatever I want. I don't need parents. I don't need protection. And you might see some teenagers that get very bullish and very headstrong and determined that they're an adult. They're going to do what they want. They don't need the protection of their parents. And they run off and do whatever they're going to do. And they suffer. Ultimately, they ultimately learn, and sometimes the lesson takes longer for some. And sometimes they might be in their 30s or 40s looking back saying, oh, my parents, were really trying to protect me. And, I was just trying to experience and be the one in charge. And when I accept that, I learned a lot. I had a lot of hard lessons and things were very difficult, and I suffered. I got in trouble, or I got in with the wrong crowd. I didn't focus enough on the things that were important to me. And suddenly now my life is going in a different direction. My parents, were really trying to look out for me. So we can take the example of turning to the Lord, of surrendering to the Lord, and really look at it in an everyday experience to say, this is something that we can witness. We can see it ourselves. If we're having a day when we're just really not as deeply engaged with a relationship with the Lord, things might not seem as good. Things might not feel as connected, as happy. We might feel more depressed. But what happens when we plug in again? What happens when we reconnect with the flame? Then we're receiving that full energy from God. And now we're able to get through difficult times a little bit better. Then we're uplifted by the relationship with the Lord. And the upliftment comes because Krishna helps us. He gives us guidance. And he gives us lessons too. That's not to say that Krishna doesn't discipline us in his own way. He doesn't give us lessons to learn, but Krishna's there to guide us through the process. And so we have these examples of what happens when we turn our backs from the Lord and when we turn toward the Lord. And this is really, Prabhupada is providing this example in his purport as well. So by studying the Srimad Bhagavatam, we are getting a much deeper understanding of these great personalities. We're getting a much deeper understanding of all of the difficulties, but yet all of the beautiful aspects of having a relationship that's dependent on the Lord. So yesterday was the appearance of Lord Nityananda, and I just thought that it would be nice to kind of end today with there's a number of prayers that are sung to Lord Nityananda, and I just thought I'd take one of them and just read the translation. So like I said, since we're in the season of Lord Chaitanya, it's also, we're talking about the associates. Lord Nityananda is Lord Balaram, as we know. So that's the closest associate of Krishna. And so in celebrating Lord Nityananda, I wanted to just read the translation. I'm not going to go through the full text, but this is 8 Prayers Glorifying Lord Nityananda by Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur. And I just thought it was really beautiful. Sri Nityananda Prabhu's face is more beautiful and cooling than the autumnal moon. The effulgence coming out of his body is supremely beautiful. He always moves like a mad elephant, since he is always intoxicated with Krishna Prema, love of God. He is always mad after Krishna Prema. His body is completely pure spiritual energy. He always has a smiling face. His eyes are very fickle, moving to and fro. His lotus hand always holds a glowing staff. Yes, that is Sri Nityananda, by who the beating of the staff destroys all our reactions of Kali Yuga. We should take shelter of Sri Nityananda and cry for the mercy of Sri Nityananda. He is the root of Krishna Prema Bhakti Kalpa Taru, the root of the tree of loving devotion unto Krishna. I do have my bhajana of Lord Nityananda, the root of the Krishna Bhakti Vriksha. Sri Nityananda Prabhu is the reservoir of all transcendental mellows. He is the life and soul of all devotees. Nobody can compare to him in all 3 planetary systems. He is very dear to one and all. He is the beloved husband of Sri Vasuda and Sri Janava. He is always in ecstatic mood of love, always maddened and intoxicated with that mellow of love, Sri Krishna Prema. He is unknown to crooked and evil-minded persons. I do my bhajana of Lord Nityananda, the very root of Krishna Bhakti Vriksha. Lord Nityananda is very dear to Sriman Gauranga Mahaprabhu. He always does good to the whole universe. He's always supremely blissful. He is the embodiment of supreme happiness and blissfulness. He comes to this material world in this Kali Yuga to deliver the sinful persons. There's no limit to his mercy. He constantly does Nama Sankirtan, congregational chanting of the Lord's holy names, destroying the pride of this dreadful ocean of material existence. I do my bhajana of Lord Nityananda, the very root of Krishna Bhakti Vriksha. Lord Nityananda tells Sriman Gauranga Mahaprabhu, "Oh brother, what will happen to those most distressed and the fallen jivas of Kali Yuga? What will happen to them unless you shower your mercy on them? Please show them a way for their deliverance by which they can approach you and get your lotus feet." He always talks to Sriman Mahaprabhu like this. I do my bhajana of Lord Nityananda, the very root of the Krishna Bhakti Vriksha. Lord Nityananda goes to every doorstep and requests everyone with folded hands, "Oh, my dear brothers, all of you engage yourself in the chanting of Harinam. If you do this and follow my instruction, I promise that you will very easily cross over this dreadful ocean of material existence. I do my bhajana of Lord Nityananda, the very root of the Krishna Bhakti Vriksha." Like Agastya Muni, who by drinking a handful of water made all the oceans dry up, he forcibly swallows the ocean of repeated birth and death. He arose like a moon to swell up the ocean of mercy for the welfare of the jivas. He very easily destroys the sinful reactions of the most sinful, degraded persons. He is very dear to the devotees. He is always busy doing good to the devotees. He's like the sun that dispels the darkness of the ignorant fools, which descended by their sinful activities. I do my bhajana of Lord Nityananda, the very root of Krishna Bhakti Vriksha. He is always dancing and chanting Hari Bol, uttering the name of Hari. He always engages in Harinam Sankirtan. He always wanders on the streets of every city, town, and village, casting his merciful glance over his devotees. I do my bhajana of Lord Nityananda, the very root of Krishna Bhakti Vriksha. He moves with Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, holding his very soft lotus-like palm. He always looks at the moon-like beautiful face of Sri Gaurachandra and becomes ecstatic and blissful. And Sriman Gauranga Mahaprabhu also looks at the moon-like beautiful face of Sri Nitai. In this way, the two of them are completely filled with blissfulness. He always makes all the inhabitants of towns and cities wherever he goes mad with intoxication of his beauty. I do my bhajan of Lord Nityananda, the very root of the Krishna Bhakti Vriksha. Sri Vrindavan Das Thakur says, whoever reads and recites with firm faith the Sri Nityananda Dakshakam will have the lotus feet of Sri Nityananda Prabhu soon revealed to him. These 8 verses are the essence of Bhakti Rasa. They are the life and soul of all Rasika Bhaktas and the reservoir of all mellows. Lord Nityananda is the essence of the universe, the 3 planetary systems, and by his remembrance, the sinful reactions of all sinful persons are destroyed. So I'll end class there with any questions, reflections, comments.
Thank you, Mataji, for wonderful, wonderful class and so many nice points. So we'll open up for devotees to ask any questions, any comments, anything you would like to clarify. You can unmute yourself. You can type on the chat box. You can also raise your hand. Yeah, I don't see any hand raised yet. So, but I'm sure all of you should be able to unmute yourself if you have any questions. I definitely like this purport, couple of points that that are so nicely explained by Srila Prabhupada. The one that you explained also, that living entities, they are never independent. They're not free. And how Srila Prabhupada gives the example of the fire, that independently the glow of sparks is extinguished. So although we all have that quality of the Supreme Soul Krishna in minute quantity, but if we get independent from Krishna, then our qualities, they will be passive, they will extinguished. So very, very nice reminder.
Yeah, that was a really wonderful reminder for me too. When I was reading this verse, I was very much, what also very much struck me is that the Jiva Tattvas require the protection of the Lord, and the Lord is pleased to give all protection at all times. And it's when we can take some time to really meditate on that relationship, we can see that the Lord is our ever well-wisher, that he's always there to provide protection, and he's happily wanting to do that. And so that, what that means for us as spirit souls, is that the Lord will protect our spirit, protect our relationship. And we have to remember to also do our part by continuing to engage in a relationship with the Lord, and also to not directly put ourselves in harm's way either, out of ignorance, because the Lord can only do so much. And so, we still have our own responsibility to carry out in our lives. We have our responsibility to maintain ourselves. The Lord will help facilitate the maintenance of our bodies, but only to the point where we also are engaging in that process as well. Nitya Gopal, do you have a question or comments?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam to you and all devotees in the call. Thank you so much for a wonderful, wonderful class. So nice to hear.
Thank you.
So I was just thinking on the point, Mataji, when this liberated or elevated soul comes and serves, and point mentioned in the purport that, Lord gives all the time protection to them. So I was thinking of how one can understand it may be possible they may mistakenly think that, whatever, happening in their life, it might be their end over. How one can understand it is the mercy of the Lord.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing you ask is how, when something bad happens in life, how can we understand that when we are trying to have a relationship with the Lord? So Krishna, when we are engaged in relationship with Krishna, that doesn't mean that we won't have difficulties. Prabhupada had difficulties, the Pandavas had difficulties. There were so many difficulties, but they continued their relationship with the Lord. What are these difficulties? This is maybe an opportunity for us to deepen our relationship with the Lord. So Krishna may be providing, allowing for this difficulty so that we can deepen our relationship. It might be the result of past karma. And past karma is past life karma, and it also have been past karma from last week. You know, we may have done something in current history, in our current lives, that caught up to us somewhere, and there's karmic effects. We're still in the material energies, and even in a relationship with the Lord, because we're still in these material energies and engaging with them on some level, there are going to be sometimes reactions as a result of the modes of material energy. And until we're completely free of the modes of material energy, then we will continue to face challenges. But as long as we continue to turn to the Lord, turn to our relationship with Krishna in those difficulties, regardless of how they are presented, that we just continue to say, Krishna, I'm grateful for your protection. I'm grateful for whatever this is meant to happen in my life. I'm grateful for you. I'm continuing to grow my relationship with you. Is that kind of address?
Yes. Yeah, yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for a very nice question. It's, the material life is not easy. It's not easy. And we are all in material bodies for some reason or another. We all kind of got here somehow. So the goal, the point, the big thing is that we all got to the material body somehow, but we also got here to sharing in bhakti together too.
Yes, that's the plus point, Mataji.
Yeah, that's the bonus. So we all somehow did something to get us here that's beneficial. And so we will continue to, build up our spiritual savings account and continue to grow in our spiritual activities and pray for Krishna, pray for Krishna's mercy, pray for the mercy of Prabhupada, pray for the mercy of our spiritual master, and pray for the deepening of our own bhakti. And with that, then even when things happen, and they will, then we have the protection of the Parampara, and we have the protection of the Lord.
That's the wonderful point in response to this wonderful question from Nitya Gopal Prabhu, that we somehow got to this material world, but even better, or a lot better, is that we got into this bhakti movement. Because I was listening to a class, and then the speaker reminded that whoever comes in the movement of bhakti, actually they have done everything else spiritually already. So there is
Yes.
no other thing to be done now. This is the only thing we should focus on. There is no need to get distracted or feel that we need to do anything else. So that was a wonderful reminder that we are so fortunate by causeless mercy of Krishna and devotees. Thank you, Prabhu, for asking that question.
Thank you for bringing the point, Prabhu. As like you mentioned, devotees has done everything. They don't have to do anything other than the devotional service. That's a wonderful point.
Yeah, it's a really wonderful point. I love that. And, I've been really meditating on that a lot personally too. And just thinking, gosh, I can get so easily pulled into even like service of different types of seva. And next thing I know, I'm like, how am I going to get my rounds done? Are these even quality rounds? Or am I getting reading done? And like, pull back, re-engage, it's reassess. Because our first relationship is to the Lord. And I was speaking with a senior Prabhupada disciple recently, and he's like, your first service is to cultivating a relationship with Krishna. And he said, Krishna just wants to have a relationship with you. He's not so worried about, what you're doing, how you're serving, where you're serving, who you're serving. He's like, he wants to have a relationship with you, and he wants you to feel happy and have good association. And I was like, yeah, that resonates. So it's really our japa and spending time with devotees that in a relationship that feels nourishing to us, and when we can engage in service, that's great, as long as that service is also supporting our bhakti. And so we've done so much already to get to this point in past lives. Clearly, Krishna says it in Bhagavad Gita that the spiritual bank account's been filled, and somehow we've landed here, because of that past activity.
True. True.
That,
Yes.
yeah, yes, Prabhu.
Go ahead, bro.
No, that's another wonderful point, Mataji. Thank you, because I wanted to ask that question to His Grace Vishnugada Prabhu yesterday in the class, but we ran over time. That we celebrate all these festivals, we chant, we do all the services for the preaching, also for the temple. Also, what should be our mood when we are celebrating these festivals? Because sometimes we just get caught up. I have to get it done, very manual.
Yeah.
But that is the bottom line, that Krishna should feel that we are doing it for him. That bhav should be, that mood should be there, that we are trying to connect with him. And then our mindset will be probably, devotional. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for the conversation. Yeah, Krishna just wants our love.
Yeah.
He just wants our love. That's it. It's simple. Yeah. So great. Thank you for the conversation. Nice
Yeah.
question. Thank you.
Sure, Mataji. So devotees, we are just maybe about 2 minutes away from 9 o'clock. Anyone has any other question, any other point, or any other realization, please feel free to share that.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you so much, Mother, for this wonderful class. And thank you all the devotees for joining us this morning. We will see you again on Monday. And then, of course, this Sunday we'll have our temple program. So we will see all of you there. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Srila
Krishna.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Vanchakalpatarushya kripa sindhu cha patitanam pavnebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila
Thank you.
Prabhupada ki jai. Hare
Have a
Krishna.
nice weekend, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. You too.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.